All right, hello, it's me, Mike, with HPDS again. This one, now I'm going to be diving into Genesis chapter 19. Genesis chapter 19 is what I'll be reading through and discussing. So before I get started, I'll go ahead and do the Lord's Prayer. And it starts off with, My Father who is in heaven, hallowed be thy name. May your kingdom come. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Please give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our debt, as we forgive those in debt to us. And Lord, lead us not into temptation, but instead deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom of power and glory forever and ever, Lord. Amen. So, I'll be reading through Genesis 19. Like I said, Genesis 19. And I don't even have any notes anymore. I'm getting far ahead of my reading. I'm just thinking I'm just finding it easier to just read through them and talk about them. That seems to be the easiest way here. So I'm going to go ahead and get back into it. Let me make sure I get this set up properly. Okay, I'm going to read through it. Genesis 19. And there came two angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early, and go on your ways. And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and entered into his house, and he made them a feast. And he did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round about, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot, and said unto him, Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out the door unto them, and shut the door after him. And said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have two daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing. For therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. And they said, Stand back. And they said again, This one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now we will deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand, and pulled Lot into the house to them, and shut the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides, son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxen great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy two daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his two daughters, the Lord being merciful unto them. And they brought him forth, and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, Escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto them, Oh, not so, my lord. Behold, now thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape into the mountain, lest some evil take me, and I die. Behold, now this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one, and my soul shall live? And he said unto him, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city, for the which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escaping thither, for I cannot do anything till thou come thither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the city, and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in the which Lot dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar, and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar. And he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, and we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father. And he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesterday night with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him. And he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger son, she also bare a son, and called his name Benami. The same is the father of the children Ammon unto this day. So that was chapter 19 of Genesis, and we see that this one is filled with filth and destruction of wickedness. So that's how we ended it. If you just recognize how it ended, it was pretty bad. We had some incest there at the end, where 2 daughters basically get their father drunk and have children by him. And so this, in a way, is now showing you the wickedness that is out there in this world, and how wicked this world really can be, and how foolish people are, and how naive they are to seeing it. Because Abraham had no idea what was going on. It was obvious that he was standing up for Sodom, trying to say, you wouldn't possibly kill the righteous with the bad. And God was trying to tell him, there are no righteous people out there. There is nobody out there. He didn't tell him, but that's basically what God was saying. I won't destroy it if I find even just 10. Well, it turns out he can't even find one righteous person. Even Lot is not a righteous guy over here. Lot is not righteous at all. I mean, he was giving his daughters out to be molested, is what at one thing, and then at the end he's gets too drunk and he doesn't even know, and he becomes the victim of sexual abuse from his own daughters. So his daughters were clearly not in the right state of mind either. His wife can't follow instructions. She gets, she looks around, and when they told her not to look back, and she looks back, and sure enough, there she goes. So Lot was not even a righteous man. So really the only reason it came to pass that Lot even made it up out of this, the only reason Lot survived this situation, was because of Abraham, on Abraham's behalf. Basically, you're family with Abraham. You're his nephew. And God remembered Abraham, and that's really the only reason why he saved Lot in the first place. But I mean, if you think about it, Lot himself doesn't have a good outcome. Like I said, it's shameful to even mention what they did. And look at what they did. His daughters had an incestual babies, 2 little incest kids. In today's world, we know that to be absolutely perverted and wrong. And and we, it's even written about in the Bible later on that they're told not to do this. They're told not to do that. So this was wrong. This was absolute an abomination. These little Moabites that we see and the Ammonites, we will see what they too become, and how they become little thorns in the sides, and so forth, coming out of, for Israel in later years. So these are names to keep in mind: Moabites, the Ammonites. We got to keep in mind Ishmael as well. What's foretold of Ishmael. So these are names that are going to be important coming up in the future of the country of Israel, and the people thereof, the chosen people. And so now what I'll go ahead and do is, this is a pretty long chapter. I'll go ahead and go through line by line like I normally do, and let's see what the Spirit brings forth, and how we can figure out what's going on here. So if we remember from Genesis 18, there was another appearance of God. He showed up as three people, and two of them left, and one of them stayed there behind talking to Abraham. So here come these two angels. That's why it mentions these are now two angels. Now these, without the Lord, the main presence of the Lord, now they're just called angels here. So these are the angels, and they show up. And when they show up, Lot's sitting there at the gate of Sodom. So Lot was kind of somebody important. Never mind if he was a good guy or a bad guy. He was kind of important there at Sodom. And why wouldn't he be? Years earlier, when Sodom was saved by Abraham, I mean, they owe a lot to it because of this guy Lot. They owed it to the fact that Lot was related to Abraham, and that's why Sodom was even saved in the first place so many years earlier. That was the only reason worth saving Sodom was Lot. And so here he is, still kind of an important figure there in Sodom. And when he sees these two angels, and he definitely recognizes that there's something special about them. These are not normal human beings. They're not, he recognizes they're from God. And that's why he bows himself with his face toward the ground. So very much the same that Abraham done it a couple of chapters earlier, right here when in Genesis 17, when God tells him, walk before me and be perfect. Well, what is perfect? Abraham falls to his face. So this is the same thing that Lot is seeing the angels, and what's he doing? He's definitely falling down and bowing down to them, realizing that there's something godly about these two angels. And that's why he tells them, he makes contact with them right away, because he's important. He's the guy sitting at the gate, so he's kind of like the making sure who comes in, who comes out. He's that dude right there. He's that man. And he tells them, come in, pray, come into your servant's house, and come to my house all night, wash your feet, and you'll get up early in the morning and you'll go on your way. So this is kind of at night, getting close to evening. And they said, or maybe this is at the afternoon. It could be afternoon, the noontime at even. So it could be at the even, meaning noon. It's coming up on noon. And he says, stay at my house, we'll stay all night. We'll get you comfortable. We'll wash your feet. And then in the morning, you go and leave real early. And they said no. And because they already know what's going to happen. Daytime is fine. Apparently daytime is fine. That's what's going on. Is Lot's in control of the day. Lot's real, he's always there in the day. On the outside, Sodom looks probably, it looks kind of nice. Probably doesn't. That's why Abraham doesn't really know what's going on, because during the daytime, everything's fine. It's just a regular town, just a regular ordinary city. During the day, and that's why, but Lot knows what's going on at night, and he's saying, stay at my place all night, and then early in the morning you get up and leave, so that way he doesn't have to see what's going on early in the morning, which will probably be, people hung over in the early mornings, right? They party all night, they sleep all early morning, and so that's why, this is the perfect time during the noontime. Lot's in control when all the other people are still living that nightlife. But they know what's going on. And so these angels aren't fooled by Lot, who's trying to whitewash the town, who's trying to just make it look clean, even though it's a sinful nation, a sinful town. And so they're saying, no, we're gonna go ahead and stay in the street all night. We're gonna be coming in like just like other outsiders. We're not trying to be special, is what they're trying to say. We're gonna sleep. We're gonna show up, and we're gonna be humble, and we're gonna sleep in the streets all night, which is kind of a typical thing that would have happened back in those days. People, if they couldn't find somewhere to sleep during the day, I mean, sleep in somebody's house or in a motel type situation, an inn or whatever, they would just sleep in the streets all night, right there in the main circle, the main corner or whatever, where everybody was gathering during the day, where important things would happen during the day, and that's what they were gonna do. But obviously Lot knew that, that won't be good for you. This is a wrong neighborhood. This is a wrong neighborhood. You don't want to do that. And he said, just come to my house. So they said, all right, and they go to his house, and he makes them a feast, and he makes unleavened bread. And this unleavened bread is kind of important too. And he did make unleavened bread. So we'll see unleavened bread coming up in the future, and it becomes like another symbol, just like when Melchizedek brought out the bread and wine, which was another symbol of Jesus Christ, another allusion to Jesus Christ. Mind you, this is all going on during Abraham's life, which is many, many, many generations before Jesus even comes around. So, and that's why these are all such very important, these little details, because he was just barely prophesying Jesus Christ unto the people. And so before they lay down, but before they make it to sleep that night, so they hang out with Lot, they're spending time with Lot, but at night, these two angels were clearly, like I said, I've said in other chapters that they were probably like creatures of light. Like they definitely would have been bright, perhaps. They probably may have glowed. They probably did not look like normal human beings. So, I mean, they may have appeared to have the figure, but they probably definitely appeared as angels. Something special was about them. There was something obvious about them that everybody knew. Not just good people, not just the Abraham and Abraham's people. It was everybody that saw them, recognized that this was clearly, these guys are something different. And so the whole time that they were hanging out with Lot, it must have been going around the city that they had heard about it. People had probably seen them show up and said, "Oh, look at those guys. Who are they?" And then they probably recognized, well, they went into Lot's house. What are they doing with Lot all day? And then at night, here come the city after they've heard about this. They must have heard about it. They'd been talking about it during the day, and now comes the night, and they all pop up, all the men of the city, and they compass the house around, both old and young, every guy, all the men, from every quarter, everybody, all the men, come right here at night, and they all show up, having heard about what's going on. And they called unto Lot, and they're saying, hey, where are those guys, where are those men that came into this, bring them out, that we may know them. And that's where it says we may know them, but as we come across this saying in previous chapter, they knew him, and they know each other biblically. So this is talking about, let's have sex with them. We're going to have sex with them. We're going to rape them. And that is what is mentioned, and that is that's what's said in other ones. Like, for example, let me take a look at this New Living Translation on verse 5. Verse 5, New Living Translation, Genesis 19. They shouted to Lot, where are the men who came to spend the night with you? Bring them out so we can have sex with them. And so that's the New Living Translation. I got this English Standard Version, which is the ESV. And let's see, chapter 19:5 of Genesis reads, and they called to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them. Okay, so this one says know them as well, the ESV. So they want to know them. Okay, so that's what they're doing. They want to know them. And I think maybe the reason why it's kind of written like this is because these guys are really being perverted, and that's how sometimes they don't necessarily explain what they're doing. And they use a lot of slang too sometimes. But Lot went out and to the door, and he shut the door after them. So he basically goes outside and he leaves the angels inside his house, and he said, "Look, brothers, look, brethren, don't be so wickedly. Don't rape these guys." Because that's what they were saying. They were like, "Hey, we're gonna have sex with them because that's what we do." There was a big town of gay people, homosexuals. All these men were homosexuals. They were very sexually perverted, and that's what was going on. Even Sodom today is a root word for sodomy, which is known originally as a homosexual act, but it also can mean just rape in general for other things. But so it was, and you see them here also wanting to rape them. They were going to rape them. That's what they were going to do. Um, but what does Lot counter with? And remember, Lot's not even a great guy. Lot himself isn't righteous. These are just like ordinary people. They think they're good. Lot probably thinks he's a good guy. You know, he's not trying to act like these other guys in Sodom, so he thinks he's a good guy too. But in reality, he's just naive. He's foolish. He's a bad guy himself. He's just not as super bad as these other guys, but he's still a bad guy. And what does he do? It's his foolishness. Behold, now I have two daughters which have not known man. Uh, Let me bring them out, and you do whatever you want to do to them. But just don't do anything to these two angels, because I'm protecting them, is what he's telling them. So he's telling them, here, take my daughters, do whatever you want with them. And you'll see, and you'll come to find where there's, later on, we come across a story, and I want to say it's during the book of the Judges, it's during the time of the Judges, that what we will see is that we will see the people of Israel get so bad that something like this happens where the whole people want to come out to rape this man or something, and he gives them the woman instead, and he's like, "Well, take the woman instead," and they're gonna completely rape and murder the woman. So basically, in future stories, we see something that's very similar to what Lot does, that somebody else does that later on, that same situation kind of happens, and he says, "I got this woman that she's never been with, man, go ahead and do with her as you please," and the men take her and they basically rape her to death. And then something happens where that guy, I mean, once again, it's going to show the evilness of how bad people are getting, and that story is going to basically echo this story, and this story is showing you how bad Sodom's going to be. Well, in the time of the Judges, it's going to get so bad too, where something happens in Israel like that, very similar, and then he's gonna, after she gets raped to death, which is what Lot right now is basically suggesting, and he has no idea that that's how close he was to losing his daughters. If they would have said, "All right, bring your daughters out, we're cool with that," well, then he would have probably had two raped daughters that were raped to death, more than likely, because that's what this crowd was looking up to. This crowd was up to no good. No good. That's what was, everything was, Sodom was just wicked. And Lot's having a hard time controlling them. Obviously, he thought he was cool with them. He thought he had some sort of sway over them, perhaps. He thought he could, live alongside these evil people and not become evil himself. But here he is, just offering his daughters to be raped. Is what he's, like, just rape my daughters, but don't rape the angels. That's as best as he could do. It's the best he could come up with. Rape my daughters, don't rape the angels. And of course, this doesn't really help the situation. It says, here the people, they said, "Stand back." And they said again, this one fella, look, that now they're criticizing him. Now he's completely losing his standing with these people. Now they're coming, look, this guy came in to sojourn, and now he's going to be a judge. Now we're gonna deal worse with you than with them, and we're gonna rape these guys. That's what they're gonna say. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. They were gonna break in there, so they were getting ready to do some wicked things. They were gonna go crazy, animalistic, prison yard. This is what they were doing. Something wretched, something wicked. And these were angels, people that clearly looked different than human beings. That was, I mean, they knew this. They were trying to have sex with angels. That's what they wanted to do. That's how perverted it was. It was so, these guys were so warped and wicked that their idea is, we seen an angel up here, and instead of like Lot, who was probably the only, the best guy in town, the most decent guy in town, and his kind, when he sees the angels, he falls to his floor and worships, pray, just like when Abraham was in the presence of the Lord and he fell to his face. That's what they should have done. You see an angel and you should be in awe. You should be like, wow, there's God's appearance. God's angel has shown up to me. I'm in awe. This is amazing. Instead, these guys are so wicked. They're like, oh, wow, angels. Let's go have sex with them. Um, that's how wicked these people were. And that's a lot of people. If you know anything about the world, there's a lot of wicked people that are just like that. That's not honestly, it's not exaggerating in the least bit. If you know some of these wicked people out there. But so they're trying to break into the door. So at this point, here the angels pull Lot back into the house. So the angels now have to save the day. So Lot can't do anything. Lot is not a king like Abraham. He can't save nobody. He isn't able to he doesn't have his own soldiers apparently. He's living a far different life than Abraham must have been living. And they probably didn't even notice it. They probably didn't even know how different their two little lives had been. Just from one living in the city and one living with God out there. And they smote the man. So here comes the man, pull the Lot in, and they smote the man with blindness. So something happens, and bam, they make everybody blind in the middle. And some people have said, and maybe in maybe other translations make mention that they do it with a light. But like I said, they probably were people. These angels were probably clearly different looking than humans. They were probably made of light. They probably were very bright. And so for the idea of them maybe shining real bright all of a sudden and blinding everybody, that could very well have been the case. They just, showed as light real quick. They did something and they blinded everybody. Everybody, small and great, so that they wearied themselves. So they did something where they blinded everybody that was there. Nobody could, they were all blind. And the men said unto Lot, and so the angels are saying, is there anybody else here? You got your son-in-law, your sons, any daughters, and whatever you got in the city, get them out of the city right now. Because we are going to destroy this place. This is what the angels are telling Lot. Anybody that you want to save, go get them right now and bring them out of the city. Because we're going to destroy it. Because look how bad these people are. Look, God sent us to destroy it. So we're here to look at these people and destroy it if we need to destroy it. Look, right away, these people are just trying to rape us. They're trying to kill us, trying to destroy us. They're trying to defile us. And Lot went out, and so Lot goes out, and clearly, when he said that his daughters, he had some daughters that had never known men. They were even married, apparently. His sons-in-law were married to his daughters, but why were they? They hadn't even sealed the deal. Apparently, these daughters were still like virgins over here, even though they were married. And he's telling them, hey, get out of here. Let's go get out of here. But they thought he was just joking. They didn't know what was going on. They were like, what are you talking about, old man? So they were probably, like I said, why are you married and you haven't been with your wife yet? Unless you realize that most of this town, this whole city was filled with homosexual behaviors. Like, they were homosexuals, and they probably identified as a city of homosexuality. Something about it, something about this sex, this whole city was something perverted with sex. The daughters were married, but they had never known men. So they were, they probably thought, who knows what was wrong with them. They were clearly, they themselves, these daughters were also so wicked, and you might call it naive or not understanding. They could have been, but they end up molesting their own father to have children through him. So that means they were sexually perverted too. There was something wrong with them. They had issues where they thought that that was okay to have sex with their father while he was drunk, and they knew it was, they obviously knew something was wrong about it, because they have to get him drunk later on when that happens, and we do come across that later on in this chapter. Clearly, these daughters were married, but they had never been with men. And Lot had offered them off to be raped by these men, and the men were clearly not interested. They were looking to have some homosexual sex with some angels, is what they were hoping what would happen. These men, apparently, that's what they think was going to happen. They thought that that was going to rightfully happen. But yeah, so the sons-in-laws don't even care. So he basically, it says that when the morning arose, the angels hastened Lot, and basically they tell him, hey, you got to hurry up. You don't got any time. I mean, he's running around for a little while after this incident, and clearly he's taking all night. He's running around to go deal with some things, trying to get people out of the town. And when the morning comes, the angels are saying, you got to get out of here. You don't got any more time. You're going to be destroyed if you don't leave. And so that's why it says, and while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his two daughters, the Lord being merciful, and they brought him forth and set him without the city. So Lot didn't even believe it. Lot was like, I don't know what you're talking about. You guys are telling me you're going to destroy the town. And I mean, nobody believes me. He goes out to his own brothers and says, hey, we got to get out of here. God's going to destroy us. So more than likely, he probably thought that there was an army or something. There was an army. That's what he probably expected, just like that first time when they got invaded by the Babylonians. He was probably expecting an army. And so he probably goes, talks to the other people, the other guys, and his family members, his sons-in-laws, the guys that were clearly married to his daughters, even though they clearly apparently weren't having any intimate relationships with them, relations with them, and probably was just an act, more of like a lineage thing, more of keeping up appearances and keeping up records and having a husband and wife for the sake of having kids, or for legal purposes. They apparently had not yet been married. They apparently had not yet been with these men sexually, apparently. But nobody believed Lot. So Lot's trying to say, hey, let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. God's going to destroy the town. And these guys are probably saying, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no armies anywhere. We're looking. We're just outdoors. We're looking outside. There's nobody around us. We haven't heard anything. There's no invading armies. We don't know what you're talking about. How are we going to be destroyed overnight? It's just not going to happen. So that's what's going on. And so even Lot is lingering. He's like, well, I don't know what he's talking about. I don't really got to get out of town today. But the angels, they got to grab a hold of him, and they just said, no, you got to get out right now. And they take him out of the town. And they said, when they brought him forth, he said, escape for your life. Do not look behind you, and don't stay here. Escape to the mountain, or else you will die. And Lot said to them, oh, not so, my lord. So he's telling them, please don't make me go so far. Why can't I go to this town over here? It's just a little town. It's just a little city. And he says, look, since you're saving my life, don't let me go all the way up to the mountain, because who knows who's over there, what kind of evil is out there. He says, but let me go to this little town. Isn't it a little town? He's trying to get to another city. For some reason, we've seen how Lot here is definitely like a city slicker. We see that he definitely doesn't want to go out to the wilderness. He doesn't have it in him for some reason to live out in the wilderness. He's grown accustomed to this city life, and he just wants to look, can I go to this little city? And he clearly already, at this point, he can kind of comprehend that it has to do with being in these cities. These cities were definitely bringing wickedness upon the people. And it's because, just like we saw in the Tower of Babel, that was a little city being made, and God scattered the people by making all their languages different, making a bunch of different languages. He scattered them, and in this little city too. Now Sodom and Gomorrah would have been bigger cities, but he's destroying these cities completely. And here Abram is still, I mean, Lot is still not figuring it out, or he's still just like he's addicted to the city, or he can't really live out in the wilderness. He's got an aversion to the wilderness, and so he's let me go to this little city. Isn't it just a little city after all? I'll be fine there. And so that's why God said, he said, uh, see, I've accepted. So, and he said, so what is he says? He's talking to the servant, right? He's talking to the Lord, and God says to him, the Lord says, see, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city for the which thou hast spoken. So he was saying, fine, I'll let you go to that city, and I will not overthrow that city for your sake, because that's what you want. And so he goes, now get out of here, hurry up, because I can't do anything until you get there. And therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. So that's why he goes to that city, and it's called Zoar. So let's take a look. Basically, Sodom and Gomorrah, he basically comes down here. Instead of going to the mountain, and I think the mountain would have been somewhere down here. It seems to be there's a mountain. So he flees from Sodom, comes around, and goes to Zoar. So he's still pretty close by, but he doesn't go entirely where he was told to go. He makes a little concession, and God makes a concession. And for that sake, we got another little city, Zoar. So we'll keep that into mind, see what happens maybe later to Zoar. So that's why it says the sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar. So basically the sun was up, and it was the next day. It was the next morning sometime. It was late in the morning, though, is what it seems like, when Lot makes it all the way out there. So it took him a while. It was basically saying, how long? It took him a while. And obviously the people there, by a while, it's talking about overnight and then into the next day to do this. But nobody was expecting their destruction. And as soon as he gets into Zoar, then the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord. So here's another thing. Fire and brimstone rained from the sky, out of heaven. So out of the firmament, on the other side of the firmament, where we know is to be space or whatever, it's oceans. We know it to be some sort of oceans. I put out there in other places that it's more than likely liquid oxygen, along with maybe liquid nitrogen and other types of chemicals going into a really cold environment, a cold liquid environment that's diamagnetic and so forth. But obviously there's got to be sulfur up there, because sulfur comes running down. It's this brimstone. Brimstone, I believe, if we look it up, let's see, brimstone definition. Brimstone is, what is brimstone entirely? It is sulfur. See, sulfur. Brimstone is sulfur. So it rains sulfur out of the sky. Sulfur came from the other side of the firmament. So in space, somehow, sulfur fell out of the sky, out of the space, from the firmament, from the heaven. This is something, like I said, Genesis is completely defying the reality that we know today, that we learned in the public school system, that this is an impossibility. This is impossible for this brimstone, sulfur. People might say, well, it'll be, who knows, it could have been asteroids, it could have been comets, so forth, whatever. But God is telling us there's something out there. There's chemicals. There's chemical. There's material out in the sky. Chemical materials. These chemicals. These compounds. These elements that we don't know of. Where we're taught, and NASA teaches that there's a vacuum of space. God is telling you that is not true. There's an ocean up there. And part of that ocean includes sulfur. There's some sort of sulfur up there. And on top of that, part of that ocean up there can be used to spill rain, as well as happened during the flood of Noah's time. But basically, the brimstone and fire, the sulfur and fire fall from the sky. And if you've ever seen that stuff burn, it's got a huge smell to it. It's got an intense smell. It burns really hot. It burns for a long time. And it would have been miserable deaths for these people. But he overthrows those cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the city. That which grew upon the ground, he destroyed everything. That whole town, that whole place, the plains, and people know it, and people have seen it. I mean, in another video in a different channel, I'll probably show that too. The remnants of Sodom and Gomorrah. People have, it has been found, it's been located, and just as the Bible says, the whole area is just burn scars, and it's not the kind of burn like from normal fire. It's clearly a burn scar of brimstone. And inside they find coal, they find sulfur, they find that the burn scar. They find buildings that were utterly burned, and have become basically heaps, but they could see where the city used to be, and they could see parts of the cities and buildings that were part of the city. And the whole land, though, is just burn scars from Sodom and Gomorrah and the whole plains there. And it's a real place. Look it up. It's been found. This isn't fake. This isn't a fairy tale. This is historical records. These are historical records. God is showing his power and his might, and he's revealing it to humans through Abraham, because Abraham was righteous before God's eyes, and skilled and proper enough, and he had the right everything in order to keep the history for humans, so that people like us today could understand what was going on and what was happening in this world. And so yeah, there's his power. So God is showing himself to be very powerful. Powerful indeed. I mean, Lot had no idea what was going to happen. Abraham himself didn't even know what was going to happen. He just knew, you're going to overthrow those cities? Okay, I guess. And Lot thought maybe, probably going to be an army. I don't see an army. There's no army here. The people around him were saying, there's no army. We're not going to get overthrown overnight. How's that even possible? Well, fire and brimstone rained from the sky. Didn't see that one coming. And so everybody was dead. And but unfortunately, Lot's wife looks back, and she becomes a pillar of salt. So what does that mean? She looks back. That means she probably went back. Maybe they make it into Zoar, and maybe she makes it into Zoar, and maybe on their way to Zoar, they're on their way to Zoar, and she turns around to stop, and Abraham makes it into Zoar. And something like that must be the case, where she got caught up in it, or just looking back. Maybe she just looked back when they were told not to look back, just like God said. And because she looked back, that was just what happened to her. God had told him not to. And so there's a whole, that would have been something that would have been her defying the commandment of God and bearing the judgment of the people that were over there, not obeying his commandments and obeying his ways and everything, and being good people. But no, they were acting wickedly. And so Abraham wakes up, and that's why he even sees the whole situation. He sees the fire. He's like, wow, it's just smoking like a furnace. This is absolutely incredible that Abraham saw this. He was just completely, I imagine he would have been just in awe and shock. I mean, not knowing that God was this capable of doing anything like that. I mean, it was just incredible. But yeah, it came to pass. God destroyed the cities, and he sent Lot. So basically, he saves Lot, and that's about it. Lot and his two daughters. The wife doesn't even make it out alive. So, and then we get into, like I said, he's up there in Zoar, and he's there in Zoar, and but he's not in the city, because now he's still, after this whole ordeal, he's clearly just scared of living in a city. I mean, he had gone to the city thinking, oh, it's just a city, you'll help me. And now he's realizing, you know what, these cities are probably evil to live in. So he goes up to the mountain, and he's too scared to even live in the city anymore. So he dwelt in a cave, him and his two daughters. And that's why the daughters would have been so... Now they've lost everything too. I'm sure they were not in the right state of mind as well. They would have been completely scared. They would have thought it was like the end of the world, more than likely, that, at any moment God might come and destroy us too. Um, and so something's going on, though. They feel, though, that they need to still preserve their line. It was such an important thing to preserve the line, that they got him drunk, and they molest their own father there. And you see that the firstborn goes in and she doesn't know, and she gets pregnant. Then the next day the younger goes in, she gets pregnant. And so this is kind of like, you kind of see it echoing like a twisted version of Noah's Ark. It's a very twisted version, so don't get me wrong. And it's wicked, and so we're seeing the effects of what will become to known later on as, the evil one, the Satan, the bad guy, the snake. There's evil spirits, and that's what's going on here. Is we're seeing this kind of these evil spirits that are somehow messing and affecting human life, and they're doing it in the form of these wicked behaviors, these foolish behaviors by people that are, like I said, these are basically the focus of the Bible. These were family members of the chosen people. This is Abraham's little nephew. He's kind of, he's kind of important. He's family of royalty is what he is. He's part of the royal family. But look how bad they are. They're so, they're being twisted by immorality. They're being twisted by their own thoughts. They're being twisted by everything, and they're becoming wicked. They're bad people. They're sinful. And that's what's going on. Is he's he doesn't. It's, and like I said, they're these evil spirits at the time are concocting their own kind of. It's such a bad situation for them that they think, even though it's on a small scale destruction, and a very small scale destruction, when you think about the flood. The flood was total destruction of the world. I mean, it was total destruction. Here we have just the destruction of a couple of little cities. This was very small scale destruction compared to the flood. And but it's big enough for the demons and the bad evil spirits that are affecting this wicked behavior, that they clearly are kind of manifesting a sense of Noah's Ark. And just like when we got that slighted perversion where people pervert what happened between Ham and Noah. When Noah gets drunk, Ham goes in and people say, Ham molested his father, and that's why he gets cursed. That's why Canaan gets cursed. And that's not the case. The case was completely, it was actually showing how elevated Noah was compared to these people. Noah was so righteous that just seeing him drunk was a big sin for Ham to do. That was a big sinful thing, just to see him naked. Here, Lot and they're so sinful, they're so wicked, and they are far from perfect. They're so far from righteousness that the daughters think it's perfectly okay to completely go all the way with him and get pregnant with him. And obviously, there's no real curse from him. He tolerates it, whereas Noah wouldn't even tolerate him being seen naked by anyone of these kids. And here's what's going on with him too. Same kind of concept. After the destruction of all the world that they know, they don't think there's anything left. This is how these demons feel. Even though it's small scale destruction, it's like the destruction of their whole world. As far as they're concerned, these little wicked spirits are everything. If their world is destroyed, the whole world is destroyed. So that's what seems to be going on here. And so they kind of manipulate this, and that's why it kind of echoes like a flood story, but for the wicked people. And they just lost Sodom and Gomorrah. It's a big loss for the wicked people, for the wicked spirits that are within Lot and his family. And so they kind of do this exact same thing that kind of happened to Noah. They get him drunk, just like Noah had been drunk. Now here's Lot being drunk. and something sexually with the kids. This time it's daughters, two daughters. Instead of one son, we got two daughters doing something wicked. So it's a reversal. And that's what kind of wicked, that's what evil does. It kind of does a reversal. It does this kind of reflection of, but and we saw it with the line of Cain as well, with the names being very similar from Cain's relatives and Shem's relatives, from Abel. Um, or Seth's line, not Shem, but Seth. We saw that when the line of Cain was kind of mirroring, with we had, like I said, we had Enoch, we had even Lamech was one of them, a name. But yeah, they were kind of mirroring the line of Seth, and that's what's kind of, you're seeing this thing again where this evil is mirroring Noah, because Lot, these wicked spirits here with Lot and his daughters are mirroring what happened with Noah when there was the end of the true end of the world by God. This is just the end of the wicked little cities, and they feel just as devastated as though it was the end of the world. And that's why these daughters say that, look, there's no man out there. We'll never find a man. Let's go molest our father so that we can have his seed. That's how small and insignificant their little world was. There is not a man in earth. They could have gone home to they could have gone to their fathers. They could have gone to Abram's house and found some men if they would have. And they weren't. It's not like they were very far. It's not like they were very far at all. But that's how small and insignificant their lives had become living in the city, and that resonates huge in today's world, because most people are living in cities to this day, and that's exactly how a lot of people feel, that if something happens in their little world, I mean, it might as well be the end of the whole world. That's how these little girls felt, that they had to. There was nothing, that anything was never going to find a man again. They were never going to see a man again. The only man we'll ever see again that is living is this guy, our father. Never mind what's going on just up the road in Hebron, in the plain of Mamre. There's not, like, who knows how many men could have been up there with Abram, good men. But that wasn't the case. That's how warped and twisted Lot and his family had become, living in the town of Sodom. And Sodom and Gomorrah were rightfully destroyed by God. And the most righteous people in that town would have been Lot. And look how unrighteous they really are. They're just not righteous at all. They're lucky to be family members of Abraham, and that's why they were saved, because of Abraham's sake. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video. This has been chapter 19 of Genesis. And like I said, it's the overthrow of the Sodom and Gomorrah. It's more historical reference. It's historical because you can find the remains, and you can go visit the remains of Sodom and Gomorrah, and you could really see how the land is definitely burned by sulfur. It was burned by sulfur, and you could see the evidence of it. It is there. It exists. It is, and it was. This is the story as told to us by God, as confirmed by Jesus Christ as being truthful. And of course, we know Jesus Christ died and was resurrected as the first fruits, and therefore teaching us that humans and reality is not what we think it is. This world is lying to us about a lot of things, and we ourselves, when we come into the full glory of Jesus Christ, when he comes, will be more like these angels than like these pitiful men like Lot that were there with Lot. And so I'll go ahead and say to anyone who may be watching, go ahead and please like and subscribe. I'll be going through the whole Bible as best I can, as quick as I can. And I'll say God bless you to anybody who's watching, and I pray that we all bless Jesus Christ, and may Jesus Christ bless all of us. Amen.